Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here at Simply Worldbuilding. Today we're going to go a little bit into more depth on the Titans that we had briefly mentioned in the last episode there. I know that you had some thoughts. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, well, I did want to just kind of toss around ideas on the Titans a little bit, because we brought them up, but we never really integrated them into the system a little bit. We know current day, at least, that they're extinct for the most part, and that there was some sort of calamity that wiped them out, or maybe several. And we do know that in lack of them, that a lot more of these leviathans and creatures have sort of sprouted up. That's exactly the question: is what exactly happened? When I was thinking about the Titans, I was trying to think of ways to kind of contrast them from the Leviathans specifically, because we did want to make them specifically separate from each other. And a couple things sort of come up. So the Leviathans, we decided, were going to be something that formed very naturally from the earth. They can form in larger scales, but realistically they're popping up left and right just due to the magical energy that is sort of emanating from the earth. An idea I had, and this is merely just a spitball, was in order to contrast that, and I don't have any specific things tied to this, but I was like, what if we made the Titans from the sky somehow? And I know when it was coming down to the battle between them, it kind of made sense to me that they were supposed to be sort of entities of sort of chaos and order, in a way. Just with the, again, earth and sky, animal versus man sort of thing, they're kind of analogous to that. Now, what from the sky means, I don't really know. It's are they... is it they're aliens sort of thing? Is it more of a metaphysical thing? Is that merely just what the legends say? I don't know exactly.
My kind of gut reaction was, it makes a lot of sense to me to have them be from gods in one way or another, their children be that literal, or just kind of their connection.
Okay.
Or the gods kind of put them on Earth to act in their stead or something like that.
Interesting.
But then my battle with that was, why are they not doing that now? But that's kind of what I think when you say from the sky, is that they're something to do with the gods having a physical presence there, or Jesus' miraculous birth or whatever. Maybe they're part god and part human, sort of that kind of thing.
Okay. I do like the idea that the Titans kind of came from the gods, because it does kind of flip the script on the Greek myth a little bit, because that's always kind of the trap you can fall into when dealing with Titans and gods. It's just accidentally kind of copying Greek mythology. But so I do kind of like that. And yeah, maybe the idea that they were sort of agents of these gods actually is kind of a cool idea as well, that they were put there with a purpose, and maybe each one from a different god with a different purpose. Maybe they didn't all agree.
Yeah.
And so that is an interesting concept as well. I do like that quite a bit.
My other contrasting thought, and feel free to pick and choose whatever feels right and what doesn't, but is that maybe these have been there, we're kind of always around. We're a pre-human but not human race that kind of wandered the earth, and over time battled and lost some population, or maybe just when there were more humans around, it wasn't really able to sustain them, because they're obviously going to need a whole lot more space, a whole lot more resources and stuff than the humans do.
Yeah.
Maybe also aren't willing to settle down and grow crops and stuff like that. But maybe they're not human or god adjacent, just were already there. But as kind of the world progresses and things evolve and stuff like that, they kind of got a little bit weaned out, dinosaurs or whatever, right?
Yeah, well, the only problem I have with them being there the whole time is as always, things have to have a start, and it is kind of cool and mysterious to say that they were always there, but it almost puts them a little bit too close to the Leviathans in that way, because a lot of these Leviathans are also very, very ancient, and so of the earth, that they could have been there since almost the earth's sort of genesis in a way. And like I said, that might cause them to be a little too close together and too analogous, although that could also be an interesting plot point. Like, maybe they consider themselves to be very different, but in actuality, they are very close to the same. When I was picturing it, I was picturing them pre-human, like, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did want the idea of them to be pre-human, because also when we were discussing in sort of the desert area, the people sort of worshipping them in a way and stuff like that, and the Titans being there before the city was, and a lot of the Titan architecture being there before the city was. And so how the Titans viewed the people was a little bit, like, insignificant in a way. And so, like, what speaks to me on that one is the Titans being definitely older than people, for sure.
Yeah.
I do want the Leviathans and Titans to be directly opposed to each other, for sure. But, so I think them coming from the gods in a way is probably the right answer, in my mind.
I've got a pitch for you then.
Okay, shoot.
So, there is a way to have them be starkly opposed,
Okay.
pre-human, and adjacent to the gods.
Okay.
What if most of the gods can kind of agree that, like, we like humans, we want them to be here? If there were always these Leviathans, then the gods could have placed them on this earth to kind of, like, pave the way and battle and take this space back or whatever, and, like, basically prepare the world for settling and evolution of other creatures, because, you know, they wanted a space for their, you know, followers or whatever.
That is kind of an interesting idea, yeah. That would be actually really cool. Like, the gods sort of see the world as sort of like this untamed and unlivable sort of crazy place, but maybe it is sort of a free will question as well. Like, maybe the Titans are put there with a purpose from the gods. Like, they don't necessarily have a completely free will. They have maybe some ability to choose and stuff like that, but they're always functioning within their purpose, and their personality is always what was crafted for them. But yeah, so maybe putting them there as these sort of bastions into the world, and in the case of the one that we were going to have, like, sort of split the continents as well, like, they are world shapers in a way. And so yeah, it would be very interesting if they were sent down there as agents of order in order to sort of shape the world into something that the gods could then create something with free will.
Yeah.
But you could say almost like as an experiment to them, or like their motives don't necessarily have to be clear, but it was always with the intention of putting something intelligent and with free will onto the earth that was created for them, in order to, again, their motives are maybe unclear, but just to allow that to happen. That's a really cool idea.
And I think that maybe, like, they don't create more Titans now because, like, it's already in motion. They already have a foothold. They're not going to ever, maybe they're not even allowed to intervene on that level in, you know, the experiment in the world. Now that it's kicked off, like, it's up to them to make it or break it, right? So they're not going to go ahead and toss down more of these enormous Titans to do whatever, because maybe they'll do more harm than good, like crush all these cities as they wander. You know, maybe it's just not something that they're willing to do or capable of doing now, because they're bound by some kind of, like, rules or whatever.
Yeah, it would be kind of an interesting idea if, it was whatever the sort of free will experiment was, that it's sort of agreed upon, and, like, therefore would sort of become a sin among the gods to interfere in a way that might destroy this. Now, we have to be careful with the way we do that, because also the gods do have an active part in their worship, and obviously if you have, like, a tabletop game, like, your ability for the gods to, like, allow players to cast magic and stuff like that is necessary.
Yeah.
But I think more in, like, the Titans were their way of directly interacting with things, whereas, like, when it comes down to, I think, how the gods actually intervene now, it would be more through, like, these agents of
the humans.
Yeah, exactly, but not in a way that they do with the Titans, where they're like, this is what I want you to do. It's like the human has to kind of invite that in, and then sort of imbue it into the world that way. So that's definitely a really cool idea. The other thing that sort of made me another thing that sort of popped in my head was so what sort of calamity did end up wiping out the Titans? Because I don't think they were merely removed from the experiment. I think something did actually destroy them. Something did pop into my head with, so we have this sort of magical flux or magical increase that's happening right now. What if something similar happened before? Maybe even in the middle of the desert last time. That was just an idea, but yeah, maybe the sort of amplification vortex that's happening right now isn't the first time this has happened. Maybe this is the second or so on time that this has happened, and the first one was what actually made the Titans die out. Was a thought that I had.
Yeah, we had mentioned, I think, in the last episode that we'd kind of assumed there would be something like let's say that, yeah, there was already, like, this giant flux, this giant increase in these Leviathans coming forward, and they battled it out, and it was kind of like a Pyrrhic victory where, like, they won, as in they held off the invasion, but, like, died down to the last one, and the final remaining one is basically holding at bay, you know, one of these enormous Leviathans beneath the sands there and keeping, like, the last one in control, but that's all it can do. And I was thinking also, what can go hand in hand with that is that because kind of at this time or just after that, we were thinking that people were around and starting to make civilizations now, that, like, because humans were now, or like, you know, civilization, not just humans, I guess, but like, we're starting to make civilizations and we're worshipping these things, that they had kind of done their job, and now the gods kind of, like, almost forsook their like, creations, their titans.
Yeah.
Because they're like, job's done, like, you did it, so we're not gonna, like, help you anymore, we're not gonna like, create any more of you, something like that. Like, we're all done now, and they died out in like their final battle, minus just the one, because they weren't getting any more like aid or whatever from their gods. Plus, that's also a sad but pretty cool like, story as well. Like, you know, if you were to ever, like, find ancient scripture or talk to the final Titan or something like that, they could tell you this, like, depressing, sad but cool lore about like, yeah, our gods, like, left us here to die or whatever, right? It's, you know,
but, like, it's also kind of like we knew this was part of the plan the whole time. But this is also kind of the interesting thing about, like, it's sad to someone with free will. Because they're like, well, couldn't you have chosen to live? And to him, the last Titan, it's exactly. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, this was the purpose. This was exactly what must be done. So I can't even possibly fathom doing anything else. So yeah, it is kind of like a cool, like, sort of bittersweet end but beginning sort of thing.
Exactly,
I really like that. Yeah, were we thinking this sort of world serpent is, like, even older than the original 3 we thought of? Because if the Titans are fighting this one, but the other ones weren't considered a threat enough to be captured in the same way, you know what I mean? Like, these ones are, other than the one that's sleeping, but that's not captured, but the other ones are in, like, kind of a free roam.
Yeah, I think that it could be, like, the new huge, like, world, you know, like, the set piece level ones, I think could be post this, because, like, humans, or again, like, civilization was only kind of starting to exist, and it could have started in this area or somewhere else entirely, and then, like, before this other continent that has, like, you know, the big giant mountain dragon settled down, there wasn't really much in the way of people there, like like some people, but not a whole lot, and so it wasn't like, oh my god, like, oh no, you know,
there's a big dragon.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of, like, was able to do its thing and then find its place to slumber without impacting the world too much. Like, because we had mentioned that we had thought about there being, at least around the same time, this like, sort of dwarven settlement that was up there.
I think probably what seems slightly more likely to me is, like, if the snake is like the oldest of these, like what you would call, like, pre this sort of crazy calamity. I think the three primary ones that we thought of that were super huge probably, like, ended up spreading out around the time where this began, but also civilization was probably, like, it wasn't spread out at all. Like, humans were still existing within their little singular civilization and singular circle, and by the time we've expanded out there, these things were already huge. Like so much history and so many generations have happened that like now these are the ancient ones, but there's still this single remaining serpent that's being tied down. That's almost like a god among the Leviathans in a sort of way, which would kind of check out for what we were basically equating to a world serpent, which would be super cool.
But I do think like certain ones, like the dragons of the four winds or whatever we ended up wanting to call them, and like this island turtle, are not hurting anybody, and also are very, very. They have a lot of movement, and they're never tied down to one spot, and so they would be a real pain for the Titans to actually really take on. And so, like, maybe picking their battles, and like we'll fight the ones that are being the problem.
Yeah.
Those ones we'll worry about later or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they could have also been ancient as well. Or maybe even like the mountain dragon was already slumbering, and so like why bother or whatever? Like put that on the back burner.
I mean,
So
it could have been
maybe
something in the calamity that made it slumber.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
It could have been something that's been sleeping since then, and so.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Maybe like whatever this flux is, kind of like enables something like that to kind of harness the energy that's being pumped out. And so like there's also the threat that with this new flux sort of starting again, that could potentially put out enough energy to wake this sleeping dragon that has fallen asleep since the last one ended.
Yeah, and what it really brings up for me is what we need to get to. What exactly is this vortex or thing or energy that's resurfacing?
I had a potential idea for it here. Right. I think like the idea is basically that it's like a malfunctioning like magical network, or like a leaky hole, right? Where it's spilling out, but it isn't intended to. But I had a thought: what if this was the scene of some kind of like fight between the gods or something like that, like on a god level, some kind of fight, like because a rift opened between the gods that are good and the gods that are bad. And something like because of this fight or this rift that has kind of opened between these different pantheons of gods caused this like this rift, whether that be a battle and one was the god of magic or the god of death or whatever was like slain, but like either their death or their final like vengeance or something like that was to open this rift. Like, because if it was the god of like magic or something like that that had fallen in this battle or something, then that could explain like a magical rift opening.
Yeah, I actually had kind of a similar idea too, but it was a little bit less of like one pantheon versus the other. What if it was a singular pantheon, but there was one sort of god, and in almost sort of a Hades sort of scenario where like they were kind of the one who was just picked for this job, and it's the job no one wanted, or maybe not even necessarily picked for this job, but they're just like the black sheep among the pantheon, and so they are sort of like the god of nature and the earth, or just chaos in general. You can even think of like the god of chaos, and none of the gods really want to acknowledge their presence within the pantheon. They're shunned. They're not appreciated. This, that, and the other thing. And so there is always a battle between the chaos god, which reasonably would probably be the most powerful one.
Yeah.
Maybe the eldest if you wanted to even get into like ages of things, but just the one that's pushed to the side and told, no, you're bad.
Yeah, it's your burden to be hated.
Yeah, exactly. And
I really like the idea of it being like the goddess of like chaos, because not only is that cool, that's also the energy that we kind of wanted to be for these Leviathans.
Yeah, exactly.
As well as the idea that like chaos and entropy is not inherently evil. It is very natural. But it is scary and bad, but it's not. It's very natural.
To these beings of order made from the gods, it is.
Yeah.
And so it is sort of it's almost like a he said, she said, sort of like, well, we think you're bad, and so everyone, like you weren't part of creation. We created everything, and so everything we created also doesn't like you.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are the laws of the universe and therefore true, but they're only true because of the way the gods chose it to be in the
Yeah.
first place. So it's almost like this strange sort of loop of like, well, we made it this way, so it is, and therefore it is the way we made it.
Yeah,
And
the self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah, kind of, yeah.
So I really like the idea of it being chaos.
Yeah.
So what about, like, you know, say the god of chaos, the goddess of chaos is creating this to happen? Are they neglecting their duties? Did they do something out of spite? Did something do something to it? Like, what is it that's creating this? Or is it like, you know, a thing? Is it inherently like just something of the god of chaos? Is it they dropped their phone?
They stubbed their toe?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is it that's causing this?
Well, it does, when you say inherent, like, that calls out to me the most, almost, because, like, well, why is this happening? You ask the god of chaos, and they say,
This is. Yeah.
like, you want me to tell you? Like, I'm probably the last person you should ask. And so, yeah, the idea that they're not on, like, some sort of, like, these rifts and the sort of expulsions of this magic, chaotic energy, they just happen. And on a godly scale, they happen frequently, but on a mortal scale, they're very rare and often define, like, epochs of time, basically. And so the very, very first one, the Titans were sent to conquer the world of chaos. Like, it was kind of their entity at this point, and they were sent, like, nope, that's bad. Make it
Bring order to it.
Bring order to it. Yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for. And so as they do, and as they try hard to, well, it's kind of like the water metaphor that you were giving before. It's just like, well, an increasing, it's this flow, but then you stop it and it just increases the pressure, and just there's one point where it starts to point out and sort of leak. And so actually it's kind of also because I was thinking of, like, the flow of water, but I'm like, the flow in a single entity is looping on itself, and then immediately my brain went like, well, so is the Ouroboros. Yeah. And so is the serpent that we were thinking of, so that's just kind of a funny little thing. But yeah, so these are just occasional little things that you just can't slap flex tape on. Yeah. You can't just stop them. It's
just slap flex tape on it and it'll stop the hole, but then the pressure builds and pops out somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So
I like that.
And yeah, so it's even something that, like, even the gods can't even fix. Like, it's so
can't stop chaos. Yeah. And despite all of the effort and, you know, band-aid solutions that they've put on trying to create order in this world, there will always be chaos. So it has kind of sprung a leak somewhere else, right?
And that does actually, because we've been talking about little micro plots that you can have around the world and stuff like that, but that really does feel like the plot of the current age. Yeah. Like, if you had an adventuring party or a set of characters that you were bringing through this world, like, this really does feel like the final, not the final boss, but the final problem that needs to be solved specifically, because as we've established, it's already grown quite a bit. How much until it sort of reaches this critical mass, we don't know. And so it leaves a lot of area for creative liberties.
Yeah, and you can also see other solutions that may not be, like, the good solution, but, like, in theory, right, if it's just because of repressed chaos, then, in theory, bringing chaos everywhere else will relieve the pressure and seal that up. So it's honestly, you can see why there'd be other factions or peoples with other motivations that may seem bad, but are honestly kind of valid points.
Yeah, like, exactly. There's no correct solution, and there's no way to make it go away. So everyone just has to decide on a way to handle this.
Yeah. So honestly, like, you could see that, like, say the followers of the god of chaos or whatever are kind of the good guys, right? Like, if they're trying to, like, you know, sow chaos or whatever wherever they go, they're kind of taking some of the pressure off that is causing this leak. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's like, well, the more you disperse it, the more chaos there is, and therefore the more sort of, like, bad things that can happen to people. And so it's like, it's this in the balance of chaos, you're weirdly trying to manage order at the same time. Like, it's this it's this strange two-sided coin that never stops spinning. And so yeah, exactly. You could easily join either faction and feel that your side is valid.
Yeah.
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Do we want to make like a specific number of Titans? Do we want to make it like the 3, the 5, the 10, the 12, the...
Well, I think like in ye olden days, I think, yeah, I mean, I kind of think that there should be like, maybe like one like per deity, or like maybe a couple per deity or something like that. That can kind of personify the things that they want to create in this world that they're trying to basically prepare. So not a specific number jumps out in my head, because I don't exactly know how many like real gods and goddesses and deities we're gonna end up having.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of, it is a good question. Like, you're kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit, although for the sake of alliteration, 12 Titans sounds pretty fun.
12 Titans does sound pretty good.
We can keep a tentative 12 Titans. A titillating tentative 12 Titans.
They're terrific 12 titillating Titans.
Yeah. The titular. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I do like that idea, and I do like the number, like, kind of calling out for some reason. But yeah, we'd have to back it up a little bit and think of the actual pantheon, and making a pantheon is like a whole other thing.
I think that one thing in regards to creating a pantheon that is important to do is just keep in mind that like people are going to look into every single aspect of life, and there is going to be a deity for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be different. Because people can see one deity as being, let's say that you've got, you know, the goddess of the harvest, and somebody is worshipping the goddess of strawberries. That can be the same one, but to them it's different. You know what I mean? So there can be 12.
Yeah.
But then there's multiple different sets of people who worship one, thinking that it's a different one, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
No, totally. I've even used that in sort of like when trying to come up with my own world as well, and because you see that in real life. It's so interesting when you actually look into mythologies and stuff like that, because a lot of people like to think that they're very, very separate when in fact they're not. Like one way that the Roman Empire expanded so well was because they kind of let people keep, at least, I'm no historian, but from what I've heard, they've kind of let people keep like their ways of life and sort of ways of thinking a little bit, like a certain level of self-governance and self-belief, but they always put their gods above them, and they're like, oh yeah, yours are there, they're just here, not here. And I think Christianity did that quite a bit as well. Like you found like a lot of the sort of Norse tales that we see now like are very, very Christianized, but that's because the sort of people who were handling that stuff back in the day had these two opposing sort of ways of thinking, and slowly tried to make them fit together. And this is, I think, why like saints are a thing. This, like, in a lot of cases, I think especially in Ireland, if I know correctly, like a lot of the saints and stuff like that were sort of considered to be like either gods or deities or spirits or something like that. When Ireland was sort of brought into Christianity, they were like, no, they're still there. They're just a saint. They're not part of this upper echelon thing. And also, like, when you think of you hear about battles of gods a lot in history as well. And realistically, what any sort of battle of gods or two gods coming together to have a child, a lot of that sort of stuff that's been created was mostly basically based on two different types of people having their own types of god coming together, and then either choosing to have them fight and one come out on top, or mixing them together and creating a singular new thing. And so they were using the metaphors of either war or childbirth in order to do these things. And so mythology is such a mishmash of a ton of different stuff just trying to be put together, even if it doesn't fit. Short answer, if you have something and you're like, these gods don't quite fit together, or these ones contrast, or things are a little messy, that's totally fine. It is in real life too. No one's been able to figure it out yet in thousands of years. Yours can be fine if it's a little bit all over the place too. Rant over. But yeah, so maybe we'll have to save the pantheon and therefore the like total amount of Titans for a little bit later.
Earlier, I'm pretty sure that I used the phrase like real goddesses, gods, whatever, whatever, kind of as like a, you know, these are the base like 6 or something like that. And then yeah, like you had mentioned, there's like, oh, these two had a kid, and now it's like the god, the goddess of this. And then these ones are like, so the base ones were what I meant by like the real ones.
Yeah.
So maybe each real one, like the base, the top dogs, each chose 2 aspects that they wanted to implement or whatever like that. And so they had, you know, created the 12. Or maybe there's 12 and they created 1 each or something like that. Yeah,
and well, that is also kind of an interesting thing, is because like, yeah, that's another thing that happens in mythology a lot of the time, is one thing that they say is 2 things is actually 1 thing.
Yeah.
Like, I know Dionysus as a god is very messy on what he's about, where he's from, what he's for. Like, I think I've heard that the god Zagreus, which a lot of people will know the name from Hades, but it is actually a name in Greek mythology. It's like, oh, was he Dionysus's kid? Was he Dionysus? And I think there's another, like, there's another complete other god that people theorize was the original form of Dionysus as well, and then he eventually became that. So like, this stuff is all over the place. And like, yeah, if you have one god, this is the thing, is like, in a fantasy setting, the gods are like 100% real. And so yeah, it's like, if this god is actually like 5 other gods by other people's estimation, that totally works. It's like, just a messy
the
ordeal.
God of mercy could be just the god of death, like, you know what I mean? Or the god of war could be the same as the god of thunder or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. There was one thing I wanted to mention while you were in one of those rants, was that I'm pretty sure it's a thing where like Loki is kind of assumed to have been like multiple of the other gods and goddesses in different stories and stuff like that, where there's like, oh yeah, we were the god of partying came to us, and it's like, no, that was just Loki.
Yeah,
he was just goofing. Like, yeah,
he was just like, I'm gonna dye my hair gray, and go fuck with these guys. Like,
gonna dress up as a cow and just have a fun night. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that does sound like a good party.
Yeah. So when you're creating your pantheon to throw back, you can have whichever ones you want to be the ones, and they can be interpreted as multiple other things, or you can do what we're probably gonna end up doing and sort of create like, you know, a tier down demigods, whatever, or saints or something like that to represent different things, but that kind of all circle back to a different one. And people can interpret it different ways, and it could be all kinds of different things. It will get messy. It doesn't have to be uniform across your entire world, although if it is, that's probably, I don't even know if that's easier or harder, but you can do that as well. You can have it be where everybody kind of knows the same things. There isn't a whole lot of arguing. But I do think that having different people in different places believe different things is really good for storytelling. Yeah,
actually, I just had a little bit of a realization as well, because the one Titan that, well, I think we've tentatively come up with 2 Titans. One that is the very last Titan, the last Titan standing, and the one who's fighting off this world serpent, who was more than likely basically the leader of whatever crazy Leviathan attack or army that happened before. We've also come up with the one who split the continents in half, who we were thinking had a trident. It was very Poseidon-esque. But we had also mentioned that he had daughters. So these Titans can have children.
Well, allegedly, at least.
Fair enough.
That's what the stories say. It doesn't have to be canonic, but it is kind of cool to have somebody canonic that at the very least represents that. Like if we had, there are actually 3 people that are documented as being the founders of these cities or something like that. There's like paintings of them and stuff like that, and they're said to be the daughters of these Titans.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
So, but it does bring up the question: do we want to make it so that Titans can sort of can have children, or do we want to make
I honestly do. I do like the idea of having like Titan blood be a thing. Like maybe you know, Titans could have children, and then like they can have children, and they can assume the form of a human and have children with humans. And so out there is amounts of Titan blood that still remains. I think that that's a cool thing.
I mean, Titan blood's a freaking cool phrase just in general. It's almost too good to let up. But yeah, so like how exactly does it work? Because yeah, like, okay, we could do again a little bit of the Greek where they sort of show up as a human.
Yeah.
Is that considered a bad thing among the Titans? I kind of think it would, because
I think that in the grand scheme of things, probably. But let's say that like maybe one of them was kind of following the instructions, but was like, oh, I can kind of give humanity a gift and continue to protect them in the future by spreading some of my blood. You know what I mean? And like, maybe that is not what the mission was, but they're like, oh, that kind of fits into my, like, a loophole.
Yeah, right? There was a little bit of a, it would be very interesting too to figure out exactly what god. Well, it's supposed to be the one who split the continents. So why did he split the continents? To protect his daughters? Did he try to separate humanity from his daughters in a way to try and, or did he try to separate? Was there another Titan who was after them? And he separated the waters to try and protect them? Like, I want to flesh this out a little bit more, because it'll really...
I think that we should do the details of it in an episode that we can dedicate to the three cities, because I think that that's a cool story that's going to take
longer. Yeah, true. That's a good point.
But I do think that getting, like, the base idea of the history of it is totally cool for this one. And I think that, like, let's say if there were 12... deities that had sent a chosen Titan down, that could have easily been like, the Titan that represents the god, the goddess of like love or compassion or something like that. And that kind of, it gives you an idea of why that would have been an idea that they would have had.
Yeah, exactly.
As well as thinking that I'm not going against my god. This is kind of valid.
Yeah.
And then do we think? I kind of think that maybe like. It could have been the same Titan that split the continents trying to protect the daughters.
Yeah.
Or it could have been a rival one that was hardline, did not agree with what was...
I was just going to say that, yeah, maybe instead of him, the daughters being of the one who split the earth, maybe the one who split the earth was directly opposed.
Yeah.
That's also an interesting idea as well, and it could be actually kind of cool if the mythology kind of fucks up along the way and equates those two. But we can come up with directly that a little bit later.
Yeah, because there is a cool story to be built there.
Oh yeah,
but I think that it gets its own episode.
Yeah, totally. No, that's fair enough. I had another idea though, actually. So we established it's like, okay, these Titans can have children. They're not supposed to, because realistically it tampers with the god's plan for humanity in the first place. So what if Titans were being created, were being sent, but it was this Titan's sin of sort of mixing himself with humanity that made the gods be like, nope, we can't.
We're done.
Yeah, we can't risk you guys destroying this any further, and so you're all done.
You're cut off. We're pulling out.
Yeah, unlike the Titan.
Wow.
What that would do is also kind of wreck the idea that this sort of somber feeling of like the Titans being like this was the plan the whole time, because it wasn't. So we're gonna kind of have to pick one or the other, but both are kind of cool ideas. What do you think?
Hear me out.
Okay.
We can do both. If the okay, I'm cooking up something here. What if the Titan did have 3 daughters?
Okay.
And the thing that split the earth wasn't another Titan, it was a god smiting down the Titan for having done that, and that's why it's so enormous. It's bigger than the Titans because it was like actually god level, like smiting.
It was god level. Nope.
Yeah. Which killed that Titan and was like, we're done here, like the rest of them are gonna fight until they die or whatever. And the daughter survived or whatever, but the Titan actually did get smitten for committing that cardinal sin or whatever that they didn't feel like was against the rules, but the gods were like, nah, can't do that.
Interesting. So yeah, it was always intended for the tentative 12 Titans to be sent down and only be 12. And it was in breaking that rule that they were like, yes, you're done. They kill off that one, and he's basically made an example to the rest of them.
Yeah.
But now the deed is done, and Titan blood is mixed among human blood, and there's nothing else they can do about it. And so that was really all the gods could do to negate their plan. Now, the mixture of Titan blood into the entire mix really adds a whole new dimension to everything else. Like,
and it's gonna be mega diluted at this point, but like, it's pretty interesting.
No, yeah, but like, oh, there's so many things you could do with that. It opens an entire new book
in another episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so we might have to work on the Pantheon before coming back down to the Titans.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the idea, at least what we have now, is that the Titans were created by the gods, to bring order to this realm. The realm of chaos that was sort of created by the god of chaos, and their sort of black sheep representative. In their meddling with chaos itself, it's caused a lot of these sort of vortexes and problems and stuff like that, and sort of leakings out of magical energy that the Titans have died off due to a war that was happening with the Leviathans, and it ended up basically coming off in a stalemate. And that one Titan mixed his blood with humans, and so now Titan blood is
in with like human blood, and that Titan was smitten down by the gods, creating the division of the Pangea. But also, quick amendum. Pre the Titans, no rift. They were just sent there to pave the way and to bring in aspects that the gods wanted to implement in the world, and sort of clear the chaos that was already there. But in them suppressing this chaos, it burst a leak, and then they had to battle that. But inevitably, when it flared up, the more order that they brought, the more it flared up and kind of wiped them both out in a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, so, well, actually, that does kind of bring up, so why is another thing we do need to kind of establish, I think, is why is the world the realm of chaos? Do we want to make it like a direct thing? Like, is the world the body of the deity of chaos? That would actually be kind of interesting. Dope. Well, also, when you think about it, when you think of it, celestial bodies are often gods. Like, celestial bodies is the phrase.
No, it's pretty dope, honestly. It's pretty cool, because then we can also, since we never bothered like creating a world name yet, we could make it something that has to do with chaos. It could be chaos.
Yeah, we'll see if we can come up with that for the actual future episode. I'll want to think on it, because it is a big step.
It's a big step.
Yeah, you can just name your world willy-nilly, but you can also put a little more thought into it. So we'll do that for sure. But that's actually another thing. That would be a big thing to establish, is that if the Earth is the body of the god of chaos, maybe the other celestial bodies, sort of like in the same way that like all of our planets are named after Roman gods. That would be so cool too, if though that like technically the gods are actually the celestial bodies in the sky that move and like actually, because that gives them again another sort of function of ways that the gods do affect the world around them merely by their presence in the sky around them. It's sort of to do with like, whether you believe in this kind of stuff or not, the zodiac, and it's like all people born on this day do this, or when these planets are in this certain sort of alignment, certain things can happen.
They're born like while, you know, the planet, the moon of love or whatever, was bright in the sky, and so they're destined to be compassionate people, like that kind of thing.
But that would have like an actual technical effect, because they are literally the gods sitting there in close or far proximity to the sky. And so that's another huge thing to establish off the bat as well. So the Earth being the realm of chaos, the Titans going to try and conquer chaos itself, and in that actually causing more problems. Huge.
Yeah, I think that we've come up with some pretty sweet ideas here today. I hope that you agree down there in the comments. I see you watching. Thank you. But I think that that's probably a pretty well-rounded...
that's a good place to wrap it up. That episode created more questions than answers, I think.
I know, but that's one thing we've been trying to push since day one.
Yeah.
Is dangle them threads, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Leave some things open so that you can fill them later, you can tie them to other things, and make your world rich.
I think it's already paid tremendous dividends
Definitely.
when we've done it, so I think it's definitely awesome to... It's a good idea. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I guess we'll see you in the end card here. Thanks.
Howdy, partner. Welcome to the end card. If you've already watched this far, thank you very much for joining us on this journey. And if you want to be featured here in the next one, then leave a comment down below. You can always find us here on YouTube or on our Spotify. And also you can hop in our DMs on Instagram as well, and we're gonna look through there as well for people who are reaching out, and we'll talk about what they have to say for their feedback and comments and stuff like that. So we've got a couple here from some of the last videos, and here's what y'all had to say. First and foremost, we've got Atlas NL, who says, "Looks nice, man." Thank you. So that was from Atlas NL on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Atlas. Next up, we have... Oh, where'd it go? There it is. We have one from I'm Too Jag. The slumbering dragon is cat-like, and she found a natural mountain box. Well, God knows that if it fits, it sits. I really love that visual.
Incredibly cat-like, though. Yeah. And climbs the mountain, just yeah.
30,000 dead.
And then it throws up a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's the desert's its litter box.
Yeah, somebody nearby like opens a can of peaches and it suddenly wakes up. It's like, no, it's been sleeping for thousands of years. And it hears the sound of a tin opening.
Yeah. Dragon shaking its little treats.
Friskas or Whiskas. Yeah.
Oh my god. So yeah. Thank you very much, Jag, for the comment. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we'll see you again, same time, same place next week, and leave a comment down below. Subscribe to us if you want to see more of the stuff you've been seeing. Thank you very much for watching.